Thank you, Pravajika Brahmaprana, and thank you to your technical assistants. I'm glad to be here. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, and good night to all of you. For me, it's evening here in France. Just one technical note, mainly for Pravajika Brahmaprana and her technical assistant, Lakshmi. I'm on my iPad, which uses Wi-Fi because the camera and sound are much better, but the Wi-Fi signal is less stable. If it doesn't work well, I can go and start up the laptop, which has a wired connection, but the sound and video are not as good. So I want to try the iPad first and see if it works. And if not, I have another alternative if you let me know. So one other technical note to everyone, and that is that I'm going to stick strictly to the timings, but not exactly to the subjects, because I don't know how the subjects will develop. And so one may go into the next section, or one may be less than a full session, and I take up the following topic. So with that being said, the topic for this workshop is experiencing oneness, integrating Advaita Vedanta into our lives. And that, of course, is an extremely important subject because if it's not integrated into our lives, then it's just a theory and has little value to us. One of the first things that attracted me to Vedanta when I was a teenager and came across a book on the subject, the first book on the subject, was the idea that religion is about transformation. It's not about belief, it's not about doctrine, it's not about believing something till you die and then you find out whether you were right or you were wrong. It's about personal transformation. So integrating Advaita Vedanta into our lives is the important theme of Advaita Vedanta. That is what we want, and not just the ideas. We start with the ideas. We have to learn the ideas, find out what they're about, or we have no idea what to do. But they are to become active in our lives. Now, both Swami Sarvapriyanandaji, my dear friend, and myself have selected texts to use for this retreat. And I selected 3 texts. The unifying theme of these 3 texts is 3 women Advaitins and what they say about the subject of integrating Advaita Vedanta into our lives. The first one I'm going to take in this session is the Devi Suktam, which I will describe in a moment, but a few more words of introduction first. The second will be Queen Madalasa's lullaby to her child. Queen Madalasa was an illumined queen who gave illumination through her nurturing to her 4 sons. And so we'll go over her beautiful lullaby, which Swami Vivekananda used to quote from. And the third will be our own Holy Mother, Sri Sarada Devi, her Advaita and her expression of Advaita, and what we can learn from that. So that's my theme, 3 women Advaitins, and what they have to say on our important subject of integrating Advaita Vedanta into our lives. It goes without saying that because of our paternalistic heritage all around the world, in most parts of the world, religion has been dominated by male leadership. Religious scriptures have been written largely by men. Spiritual practices have been designed, and liturgies and so forth have been designed by men. Religious institutions have been organized and led by men. But the strange thing there is they have been organized and led by men, but powered by women. And you see that in churches, you see it in our own Vedanta societies, where the number of women volunteers who help to run our societies far outnumbers the number of men volunteers. As we have found today in the modern world, governments and large organizations like corporations and not-for-profits, etc., are run better when there is shared leadership between men and women. It's something that is increasing around the world. And in time, the benefits of that shared leadership between men and women will become more and more evident. But it's already evident to those who study it, which is why there is a push around the world to get more women into leadership positions. And in time, that will be found in religion as well. As I said, most of the scriptures of the world have been written by men. Our ideas of the spiritual path often use metaphors which are used more by men than by women. For instance, spiritual warfare, the spiritual path as a battle. Now that won't go away because that has great truth to it. But as women become more, I shouldn't say become more involved in religion, because they are the most involved and have been traditionally, but more involved in the leadership and the creation of spiritual traditions and the furtherance of spiritual traditions, their development and evolution, then we will begin to see a richer spectrum of metaphors used for the spiritual path. We will find different emphases in spiritual practices and so forth. Again, not by denying one so that another can come up, but a richer development of religion, which will be good for everyone all around. So one of the things that the texts that I have chosen deliberately show, the reason I chose them was part of it was to show this, is that the path of Advaita, the path of knowledge, the path of Jnana Yoga is not a male path. There's often the superstition, because that's all that it is, the superstition that bhakti is for women and jnana is for men. But nothing could be further from the truth. There have been many, many great bhakta saints that were men, as there have been many bhakta saints who were women. And there have been great Advaitins who were women, as well as great Advaitins who were men. Advaita teaches the Atman, which is beyond gender and which is universal. And so it only stands to reason that that which is beyond gender, but is universal, which is the reality of everyone, whatever their gender, that should be realizable equally by all. And that we find. I, in my own life, have met many, many women among our devotees in different countries, whether in America, in Europe, in India, whose favorite religious text was the Ashtavakra Samhita, a beautiful text which presents the highest Advaitic truth. So one of the things we have to do in coming to the spiritual life is to undo some of the prejudices we have about the spiritual path and how it applies to us. People may have told us when we were children, oh, you're very intellectual. And that may be true when we grow up. But that doesn't mean that we are natural followers of the path of jnana. There have been great, great philosophers who were great bhaktas. Or people may have told us, oh, you're the very loving kind, you're very you're emotional, very loving. And so we think that, well, my path must be bhakti. Well, it may be, may well be. But one can be a great lover of the divine and follow the path of knowledge. And so what path we follow is not dependent upon the things we heard about ourselves when we were growing up, nor what we have come to think about ourselves as we grow up. So it takes some time for us to find our way. But Swami Vivekananda believed that the ideas of Advaita Vedanta, non-dualism, would in time come to be the very foundation of religious thinking. Not that everyone would follow the path of Jnana Yoga. That would go against the very teachings of Swami Vivekananda himself and against the teachings of Sri Ramakrishna. But that the understanding of Advaita would underlie our thinking about who we are, what the world is, who God is, and what our relationship to God and the world is. We have grown up thinking, because society told us, we've grown up thinking that we are small, insignificant, weak, sinners, etc. Swami Vivekananda said he wanted to start a new experiment where people from the time they were children would learn that they were the divine reality itself, that there was only a question of manifestation. It was only a question of knowing the truth about ourselves, that all so-called sin and weakness came from a misunderstanding. And so he wanted that to be the foundational beginning point for people, so that we grew up not thinking I'm a sinner and weak and in need of salvation, but thinking that I am the reality itself. Whether I seek to know that through devotion or through knowledge or through action or through mental control, that's according to my temperament. But if I seek God as the beloved of my heart through devotion, I'm seeking my own highest reality. God is my own highest ideal of myself. And I who appear to be small, am seeking the infinite I known as God. And my path towards that may be devotion. So Swami Vivekananda wanted us to have a new understanding of the self, of who we are. When I come to the second text, which is the lullaby of Queen Madalasa, we'll see that that is the very heart of her teaching and the story about her beautiful life, and how she brought illumination to her 4 sons. But as I said, I'm going to start with the Devi Suktam, which is from the Rig Veda. For those of you who are interested in such things, if you want to look it up or know where to find it, it's in the 10th mandala of the Rig Veda, the Rig Veda Samhita, that is the early part, the hymn part of the Rig Veda. The 10th, which is the last mandala section, and section 8 and Sukta 125. So it's found at 10.8.125. And you can find it easily. It's on the internet. There are people who chant it on the internet. The text is on the internet. It's a very well-known sukta. Sukta means a hymn, a Vedic hymn. And so it will be easy for you to find it. Today, in this session, there won't be time to go over the text in detail. And there's no need really, because that's not my purpose in presenting the text today. It's only 8 verses long, and I will chant and give a translation for all 8 of those. There's time for that. But if one wanted to go deeply into it and find out what all of the unknown words referred to, like many Vedic deities, which even to many people born of Hindu parents in India, they don't recognize all of the names. They may have heard them, but don't really know what they represent. So if you want to go into all of that, that you can do on your own, but that's not the purpose of this talk. This talk is to show the extraordinary fact that the author of this hymn gives the first historically known expression to the Advaitic experience, and she was a woman. It's an extraordinary fact. The very first historical expression anywhere in the world that has been known, that has been found, the first expression of the full Advaitic experience came from a woman rishi, and her name was Vag, or Vak, or Vag Devi. Vak means the power of speech. And Vak became a name of Saraswati, the goddess of wisdom, because she is the controller of the power of speech. And so Vag Devi was the goddess of the power, named after the goddess of the power of speech. She was the daughter of an illumined Vedic sage himself. Her father was the Rishi Ambhrna, A-M-B-H-R-N-I, R-N-A, Ambrana. He was considered an illumined Vedic sage, and his daughter, Vak, became an illumined sage as well. Just a technical point of interest for some of you. It's neither here nor there for most of you, but for some of you who like technical details, the Devi Suktam, this hymn by Vak, is one of the very rare instances in the Vedas where the Devata, or the presiding deity, and the Rishi, the seer of the hymn, are the same. Every Vedic hymn has either stated or assumed a deity, a devata, which is the presiding deity of the hymn. And this continues down through tantric times in classical Hinduism. If you do puja, you often say the name of a rishi and the presiding deity and the poetic meter of a verse that you say in the puja. And so that comes from Vedic times, where each hymn had a presiding deity appropriate to the hymn, and the sage who gave voice to the hymn. And so for the Devi Suktam, the Devata, that is the god, or in this case, goddess of the presiding goddess of the hymn, is Vag Devi herself, Vagambrini. She's, I said her name is Vak, or Vag Devi, the goddess Vak, and also her name is Vagambrini. Ambrini, with a long A at the beginning, Vagambrini, means Vag, the daughter of Ambrana, her father. So that is, she is the presiding deity of the hymn, and she is the Rishika, female for Rishi, of the hymn. That's very rare in the Vedas. So her hymn, which we're coming to in a moment, the actual hymn, it is interpreted by the great Vedic commentator Sayanacharya, to be a statement of Advaita. As I'll say in a moment, there are three ways we can interpret it. Two other ways, and then the third way, which Sayana takes, and which of course I take. Sayanacharya was a great mind, an incredible mind, who commented on the early part of the Vedas. Those texts which are in Vedic, not in classical Sanskrit. Vedic is significantly different from classical Sanskrit, very difficult to understand, very difficult to interpret, with largely a symbolism which was lost ages ago in India, much of the symbolism. And yet Sayana, this great mind, he went through that material and gave interpretations of the text, through which we can get some light at this point in time into those ancient texts. So there are three ways of interpreting the text I'm about to give to you. One way is to say that the Rishi, or Rishika, Vak, that she was channeling, with air quotes, channeling the goddess. Because as you'll see when we come to when I give you the translation of the actual text, she speaks as a goddess, as the goddess herself, as the mother of the universe, the goddess of the universe. And so one way to interpret it is that the goddess was speaking through her. What in modern Western esoteric religion we call channeling, whatever the value of it is. Such phenomena have been known all over the world since before the beginning of history. And so that's one way. A second way to interpret her extraordinary statements is to say that she realized the goddess. Through her devotion, she realized the goddess, and the goddess spoke through her because of her identity with the goddess. The third way is to say, no, both of those have it backwards. It's because Vag Devi realized the non-dualistic truth, her identity with reality itself. And so she spoke as she did. So you see the weakness of the first two interpretations, either channeling or she devoted herself to the goddess and then the goddess spoke through her because of her realization of the goddess. Either way puts the emphasis not on the Rishi. She is secondary. She was just a voice for the goddess who is somebody else. But no, Sayanacharya says, and I believe, and most people believe, that no, her extraordinary statements come from her direct experience of identity with reality. I am the truth itself. Again, before I come to the actual text, let me say the statement in the Devi Suktam of this great sage, Vak, are extraordinary. They sound more like the statements of Sri Krishna in the Vishwarupa Darshanam in the 11th chapter of the Gita than they do traditional Advaita. Most texts in traditional Advaita talk about the realization of the Atman as the one reality of the whole universe. And it's the glory of the non-dual self beyond time, beyond space, beyond causation. And the world is just this appearance within the non-duality of oneself. That's a grand thing. That's an extraordinary thing. But Devi, she speaks in more dynamic terms than that is usually expressed. If you read what she says, and then you look at a great non-dualistic sage like Ramana Maharshi, you'll see the difference I'm talking about. And Ramana Maharshi was always immersed in the infinite reality of pure consciousness, pure bliss, pure existence. Devi was also, but her vision was very dynamic. And in that, as I said, she's closer to Sri Krishna's expression of the Vishwarupa Darshana, or the vision of the universal form of reality. Also closer to Swami Vivekananda and his dynamic Vedanta. So what I'm going to say is no criticism of the more traditional view of Advaita. I'm just going to contrast it with Swami Vivekananda's teaching of Advaita, because I think that that's important to understand. Both are beautiful, both are important. But Vagdevi, strangely, being the first expression of non-dualism, is closer to Swami Vivekananda's teaching of Advaita. He understood both sides, but closer to his teaching for modern humanity than the other. Sri Ramakrishna once asked Swamiji, what is your ideal? Of course, he was asking Narendra, who had not yet become a Swami, what is your ideal? And Narendranath answered, I want to remain in the highest samadhi, nirvikalpa samadhi, that is a state of identity with reality itself, and only come down once in a while to have something to eat in order to go back into, to sustain the body and then go back into samadhi. Sri Ramakrishna scolded him and said, what a mean-minded person you are. I thought you were much greater than that. I thought that you were going to be like a huge banyan tree under which thousands of people could take shelter. In time, Swami Vivekananda became a great banyan tree under which not thousands, but millions and millions of people for ages to come will take shelter. So Swami Vivekananda didn't come just to achieve identity with Brahman and then to remain in that state of realization. Again, no criticism to that. That's a grand ideal, and the ideal appropriate to most of us. But Swami Vivekananda didn't come just to do that, nor did he come just to teach a few select people how to identify with Brahman and remain in that high abstracted state of realization, however extraordinary that is. He came to transform the world. He came to bring Advaita into the world and into the experience of common people. He taught a dynamic Advaita that would not only lead to the realization of a few, but would change humanity's orientation towards reality itself. It would change humanity's idea of self, change humanity's idea of the world, change humanity's idea of God, change humanity's idea of our relationship. So he said such things as, go from door to door and teach everyone that you are the lion of Vedanta, you are the eternal self, you are the glorious one. That's an extraordinary statement. Go from door to door and tell everyone He, of course, didn't mean go from door to door like a Jehovah's Witness and knock on the door and ask, have you found your personal savior in the Atman? No, but he meant to give this truth freely to everyone. Don't keep it hidden in monasteries. Don't keep it hidden in the forests, in the caves. Give it to everyone. You, everyone, the worker, the common person, the beggar on the street. You are the infinite reality. He said, my ideal can indeed be put into a few words, and that is to teach unto humanity their divinity and how to make it manifest in every movement of life. I've quoted that before, and people who have studied Swamiji say, no, he said every moment of life. No, he did not. He said how to make it manifest in every movement of life. And that, again, will bring us back, as you will see, to Devi and the Devi Suktam. He said that through all hands Swamiji said, through all hands I work, through all mouths I eat, through all eyes I see, through all feet I move. That also we will see in Devi. He said, you, to the people he was teaching, you are the proof of the sun's existence. The sun doesn't illuminate you. You are the one who says, oh sun, you exist. And by that you give existence to the sun itself. He said with great pathos, as Sister Nivedita tells us, man, the infinite dreamer, dreaming finite dreams. You see how Devi became the infinite dreamer, dreaming infinite dreams. And he said to people, you are the ocean on which the waves of incarnations rise. You are the ocean on which waves like Jesus, Buddha, Ramakrishna rise. So he taught not just a way to realize Brahman, but how to practice it in every movement of life, and how to see it in all things. And thereby he brought that realization to bear on everyday life. That's what he wanted. He said that I came to destroy the very idea of adhikara bheda, a scary sounding Sanskrit word, which simply means the doctrine of fitness. That is, that these higher teachings should not be given to people who are not fit for them. First, prove your fitness, then I will teach you the reality. He said, no, give it to everyone. Give it to everyone. Because he felt that why give people ditch water to drink when the water of life, as he said, is flowing by? If non-dualism is the truth, then give it to all. So now let me come to the text before my time for this session is up, because I will stick to the time, even if this topic runs into the next session. So what I will do is to chant a verse, give a translation, chant the next verse, read the translation through the 8 verses. So it begins, Om aham rudre bhir vasubhischaram yahama adityae ruta vishwadevai aham mitra varuno bhabibharam yahamindragni aham ashwino bha. So here Devi says, and again, some people interpret it as the goddess speaking through her, but we interpret it as the Vag herself speaking from her highest realization of identity with reality. She says, I proceed with the Rudras, a class of Vedic deities, with the Vasus, with the Adityas and the Vishwadevas. I support both Mitra and Varuna, Agni and Indra, and the 2 Ashwins. All of those names are names of classes or individual Vedic deities. So she says, I proceed with them. I support all of these deities, because she saw herself as existence itself, reality which is consciousness itself. And these deities exist where? They exist in consciousness. Nothing, nowhere, ever exists outside of consciousness. Outside of consciousness, this is a big topic and I can't develop it right now, maybe later in the seminar. But if you think about it deeply, after you have begun to understand consciousness itself, you'll come to see that nothing can exist outside of consciousness. The consciousness is existence itself. So then we come to the second verse. Aham soma mahanasam bibharam yahan tvashtara mutapushanam bhagam aham dadhami dravinam havishmate supravye. yajamanaya sundvate. I, Vagdevi, or I as the Atman, I support the foe-destroying Twashtra, Pushan, and Bhaga, more Vedic deities. I bestow wealth upon the institutor of the rite, offering the oblation, that is, those who perform the Vedic sacrifices. I am the one who bestows wealth upon them. That is, I'm the giver of karma. I'm that from which everything comes. The institutor of the rite, offering the oblation, who is pouring forth the libation and deserving of careful protection. So again, as Sri Krishna says in Om Brahmarpanam Brahmahavi Brahmagno Brahmanahutam, I am the offering, I am the ritual, I am the sacrifice, I am that which is offered into the fire, which is Brahman by Brahman itself. One who sees Brahman in every action realizes Brahman. That Vagdevi had realized. And then the third verse says, Aham Rashtri Sangamani Vasunam Chikitushi Prathama Yajniyanam Tamma Deva Vyadadhu Purutra Bhuristatram Bhurya Veshayantim. I am the sovereign queen of all existence. I'm the sovereign queen of all existence, the collectress of treasures. Once Mathur Babu came to Sri Ramakrishna and said, after the jewelry of the goddess Kali had been stolen by a thief, and complained to Sri Ramakrishna, what kind of goddess is this, Thakur? She can't even protect her own jewelry. And Thakur laughed and said, what is that to the mother of the universe? The wealth of the whole universe is hers. There's nothing outside of her. Well, what does she care for your little baubles? So I am the sovereign queen of all existence, the collectress of treasures, cognizant of the supreme being. That is, I know the reality, which I am. The chief object of worship. I am the chief object of worship. Those who worship God are worshiping me, not in the egocentric sense, but in the sense that I am reality itself. As such, the gods have put me in many places, abiding in manifold conditions, entering into numerous forms. Wherever there's form, that is me. I appear in all of these forms in the universe. So again, let me point out this dynamic vision of Advaita, which she is giving, which is reminiscent of the dynamic vision of Advaita that Swami Vivekananda taught, not contrasted with the realization of Nirvikalpa Samadhi, but as that vision of the identity with Brahman in relationship to the world, which is dynamism itself. So then the fourth verse says, Maya so annamatiyo vipashyati yah pranitiya im shrinot yuktam amanta vomanta upakshiyanti shruti shruta shraddhivante evadami. He who eats food eats through me. He who sees, breathes, who hears what is spoken, does so through me. Those who are ignorant of me perish. Hearken, who is capable of hearing? I tell you that which is deserving of belief. So here are these extraordinary statements. As I quoted Swami Vivekananda, I eat through all mouths, I see through all eyes, I work through all hands, which was also the realization of Sri Ramakrishna. He saw that. Swami Vivekananda saw that. And Vagdevi also sees that. He who eats food eats through me. He who sees, who breathes, who hears what is spoken. And then she says these beautiful words, hearken, who is capable of hearing. I tell you that which is deserving of belief. Hearken, who is capable of hearing. That's like the words in the Shvetashvatara Upanishad that Swami Vivekananda quoted in his address to the Parliament of Religions in Chicago in 1893. Shrinvantu vishwe amritasya putraha aye dhamani divyani tastuhu. That hear ye children of immortal bliss, even ye who reside in the highest spheres. It's also the first words that this Buddha spoke after his illumination, when he came to his former ascetic friends in Sarnath, outside of Benares, after he had come from Bodh Gaya to Sarnath, and he saw those who had been the 5 ascetics who had abandoned him. And then he said to them, let's see if I can remember it, Shunvantu ye amritasya dwaram, apavritam tesha amritasya dwaram. Shrinvantu, now I forget, I want to waste time trying to remember, it will come back to me. But Buddha said, again, these same words, Shrinvantu, hear, ye who have ears to hear. The door to illumination has been opened, meaning that through his attainment of nirvana, he had opened once again the path to illumination. And so he had come to them to tell them that, hear ye who have ears to hear. Oh, Shrinvantu ye shrotrivanta. Hear ye who are able to hear. Pavritam tesham amritasya dwaram. Opened again is the door to illumination. And so here she is saying also, hearken who is capable of hearing. I tell you that which is deserving of belief. Well, my time is up now. So instead of trying to finish the last 4 verses, because I just took 4, in the next session, I will continue with the verses 5 through 8, and then give a summation. And so just to close this before we go to the meditation, let me again iterate that this opening text that I've taken was to show the fact that the first expression of full, unequivocal, non-dualistic realization was from a woman sage of the highest realization, who quite remarkably echoes the spirit of Swami Vivekananda's own teaching, as well as the spirit of the teachings of Sri Krishna in the Gita. So I will continue the text in my next session. Now I believe, does it go to you, Prabhatika Brahma Pranaba, for the meditation, or do I just go right into the meditation?
Swami, you can continue the text if you wish. I think what you're offering is so deep. You have free license to determine how you want to finish up the rest of the talk.
Okay, well then let me just finish that up, because now I have, I think, 20 minutes until 7:15 until 10:35. Okay, your time. So the fifth verse says, Aham eva swayamidam dadvadami jushtam devebhi rutamanushebihi. Excuse me. Yang kamaye tantam ugrang kreno mitam brahmanam tam rishim tam sumedham. This says, I verily myself declare this which is approved of by both gods and men. Excuse me. I verily myself declare this which is approved of by both gods and men. Whomsoever I choose, I render him an exalted one. I make him a rishi. I make him Brahman, or make him highly intelligent. Sri Ramakrishna used to say that anyone who shows any extraordinary capacity in the world, not just spiritual, but a great musician, a great artist, anyone who shows any type of skill, that they have a special power of the Divine Mother. And so here, that is what Vagdevi is saying also, though she's not speaking in terms of the Divine Mother as somebody out there, but that she as reality itself is the author of all this. Verse 6 says, Aham rudraya tanuratanomi brahmadvishe sharave hantavau aham janaya samadang krinom yaham dyava prithivi avivesha. I bend the bow to fasten the bowstring at its ends for Rudra. Rudra, the great god who in classical times became Shiva, Vedic, well, as Shiva also often is shown holding a dhanur, a bow. That comes from his Vedic identity as Rudra. So she says, I bend the bow to fasten the bowstring at its ends for Rudra. So Rudra is the deity, but I, the reality. All power comes from me. So let me stop here for a moment and expand on what I was saying about her vision of Advaita and Swami Vivekananda's vision of Advaita. Most who follow the path of non-dualism traditionally have sought to realize the reality which is beyond time, beyond space, beyond manifestation, beyond the world. And for most of us, that is a very good way to follow. Because we are so attached to the world, unless we lose our attachment to the world and attach ourselves to reality, then these other ideas have little significance to us. They're beyond our capability to practice or to see. But Swami Vivekananda, his teachings were based on Sri Ramakrishna's experience of Vignana, which Sri Ramakrishna said was the highest knowledge. That is, after you attain to the knowledge of non-duality, that I am the reality itself, one with the reality. There's nothing outside of myself. I'm no longer Swami Atmarupananda. I am the reality itself. And this is just one more person among many. This has no significance. I am the reality, not this. But after that, Sri Ramakrishna said, one comes to a state where when one sees the world again, one sees that all of this is nothing but Brahman. Meaning, since Atman is Brahman, meaning that everything here is just the self. Everything here is my own self. There's nothing outside of myself. Everything is a manifestation of myself. And all of the dynamic activity of this universe is the activity of Chit Shakti, the power of consciousness. So most Advaitins, and again for good reason, seek first to realize Chit, the consciousness in itself, pure consciousness by itself, as the infinite, in a sense, static. It's not really static, but in a sense, as we think of it as a static reality. That is, there's no movement, there's no manifestation, there's no nothing happening there. There's just infinite reality without end. But Swami Vivekananda, again, because he wanted for people to start with these ideas, he made it dynamic by emphasizing Chit Shakti. Now, you won't find those words in his teachings. That's my interpretation. But what he taught was the power of consciousness. When he says that each soul is potentially divine, well, actually, Swamiji knew each soul is not potentially divine. Each soul is divine, not potentially, but actually. But he said each soul is potentially divine consciously and deliberately because that makes sense to us. If I don't realize myself as divine now, but if I'm potentially divine, I can work towards it. And so he taught a dynamic approach to spiritual life. And he said that the purpose of religion is to manifest that potential divinity. Do this by work, by worship, by psychic control, etc. And so that again is what we see here in Vag Devi, this dynamic view of she is consciousness itself. But as she looks out and as the world appears to her again after that identity, she sees that everything happens within and through her. I bend the bow to fasten the bowstring at its ends for Rudra, for Shiva himself. I'm the one who strings Shiva's bow to slay the tormenting, Brahman-hating enemy. I wage war against hostile men to protect the praying ones. I have pervaded the heaven and the earth. Yes, that's something that we can begin to feel along the path. We don't have to wait for the highest realization to begin to actually feel that I pervade the heaven and earth. The whole universe rests within me. We'll talk more about that when we get to other texts, but to feel actually that everything exists within me. And so then we come to verse 7. where she says, Aham suve pitaramasya murdhan mama yonirapsvanta samudre tato vitishte bhuvananu vishvotamundyam varshmano pasprishami. I bring forth the paternal heaven upon the brow of the Supreme Being. My genesis is from the waters, that is the cosmic, all-pervading, formless reality. That I come from there. That is, I am the cosmic waters. In the puja, the daily puja that we do, it's also done in special pujas. We establish the conch shell at a certain point in the ritual, just before we begin the worship of the actual deity of the day, in our case, Sri Ramakrishna. And there we invoke Sri Ramakrishna into the, or other deity, into the water of the conch shell. And then we take some of that water and sprinkle it on ourselves, on all of the implements of worship, on the deity. That is invoking the formless reality of the deity here before us. And then through meditation, we imagine that that formless reality takes form and then comes from our heart and sits on the altar to accept our worship. But first we invoke the deity within the cosmic waters. And so she is saying, my genesis is from the cosmic waters. From thence I pervade through all beings and reach this heaven with my body. That is, I reach the highest heavens with my body. No, not her form, but her being, her being. In our state of ignorance, this is my being right here. This is who I am, unfortunately. So we think that this is our identity. But for a sage like Vak, her body, that is her being, her manifest being, is the reality itself, or is this universe and all possible universes. So then the last verse, verse 8, she says, Aham eva vata iva pravam yarabhamana bhuvanani vishwa paro diva para ena prithivyaitavati mahina sambhabhuva. And that is, I verily myself breathe forth like the wind, issuing out form to all the created worlds. I breathe out and give form to all of the created worlds. I'm the source of this and all possible worlds and universes. Beyond the heaven, beyond the world, I exist eternally, beyond time and space. So vast am I in my greatness. What an extraordinary statement of realization. Again, a statement which doesn't contradict at all the state of identity with pure existence, pure consciousness, pure tranquility, pure peace, pure bliss, beyond all manifestation. But when that realization, if this universe comes back to it, then the state of Vignana that Sri Ramakrishna taught is what comes to one like Vagdevi. An interesting thing about the teachings of Swami Vivekananda. Sri Ramakrishna said that Swamiji was his messenger. Holy Mother said that everything that Swamiji taught were the words of Sri Ramakrishna himself. That Sri Ramakrishna, she said she saw Sri Ramakrishna teaching through Swamiji. And Sri Ramakrishna used to say that Vignana is the highest state. And there's only one place in the recorded teachings of Swami Vivekananda where he uses the word Vignana, and he uses it in the modern sense of modern science. In Bengali, Vignana means Vignan in Bengali, Vignana in Sanskrit means modern science. That wasn't Sri Ramakrishna's usage. He meant a state beyond the knowledge of the transcendent reality. And so Swami Vivekananda, who was Sri Ramakrishna's messenger to the world, he doesn't mention that in one place. But if you read Sri Ramakrishna and Swamiji, you'll find that everything Swami Vivekananda taught was the Vignana of Sri Ramakrishna. It was the Vignana of Sri Ramakrishna. All great spiritual teachers, and I don't mean even ordinary illumined souls, if there is such a thing as an ordinary illumined soul, but all great world teachers, the Jesuses and Buddhas and Krishnas of the world, All of them have given a view of reality and then taught a way to make that view of reality practical in daily life. The same was done by Sri Ramakrishna and Swami Vivekananda. Sri Ramakrishna realized Vignana, the highest state of realization, he said, which is beyond even the ordinary state of nirvikalpa samadhi. Because as we see from Totapuri's life, he had attained to nirvikalpa samadhi. And yet he made a distinction between Maya and Brahman. So Sri Ramakrishna taught Totapuri and taught his followers that there's a state beyond that, after the realization of the absolute, where you come back and you see that Maya is nothing but Brahman. Then that is the truest non-duality, because it's not even a conflict between Maya and Brahman. So Swami Vivekananda taught Vignana with in every page of his recorded utterances and writings. That was his message. It's just that he didn't use the term Vignana. He didn't need to, because everything he taught was Vignana. It's like a fish trying to look for water. There's no need for a fish to look for water. That's everything that it sees. And so in Swami Vivekananda, if you want to understand Vignana, study Swami Vivekananda in depth, and you will understand how Swami Vivekananda taught that vision of the infinite reality, brought it into the vision of this world, to make it not just an ultimate realization. Yes, it remains that. It remains the highest realization. It remains that which we realize fully at the end of spiritual life. There's nowhere to go from there. That is identity with the highest truth. Where can you go from there? You remain in the infinite. You remain as infinite. No end, no limit. But Swami Vivekananda taught it as the beginning, not the realization, but the idea, to motivate people towards the realization. Buddha taught enlightenment. That didn't mean that he gave enlightenment just by teaching it. No, he taught the enlightenment, nirvana, as the highest state, and taught people how to manifest it, how to get there. He taught the path leading to enlightenment. Jesus did the same in a devotional way. So with other great world teachers. And so Sri Ramakrishna and Swamiji did the same. Sri Ramakrishna had the great realization, taught it to Swami Vivekananda and other disciples, and Swamiji made that into the path, so that it's a realization, yes, at the highest point in spiritual life. It's also the path leading to that realization. That is the idea of it, the understanding of it, that if we get that and make a practice of seeing everything here as divine, seeing ourselves as one with the divine, seeing that within me is all power. Yes, we start maybe in smaller ways that we can understand, certainly. We have to follow a pedagogical method that whereby these ideas are understandable. One good example of that, and just one of countless examples, is the idea that God doesn't give us anything that we can't bear. God doesn't give us anything that we can't bear. That's a great truth. We can understand it in Advaitic terms also, but if we're devotional by temperament, we can understand it simply as that. But what does it do for us if we understand that God doesn't give us anything that we can't bear? It means that we can face every situation in life. We can face everything. That was what Swami Vivekananda meant when he said that fear and weakness are the causes of all sin. The idea that I can't do what I need to do. No, you can face everything. Yes, there will be troubles in life. There will be difficulties, but they'll make us stronger if we just face them. They'll make us, they'll enrich in our lives, they'll make us stronger, and they will take us towards higher and higher manifestations of our inner divinity if we just learn to face the difficulties we have to face rather than running from them. Because you can face them all. That's the inner non-theological meaning of God doesn't give you anything that you can't handle. That is, you can handle anything that comes to you. You can handle anything that comes to you. So that's just one way in which we begin to understand these truths and begin to apply them in our lives. Yes, I can handle anything. And whether I understand that as God doesn't give anything to me that I can't handle, or I have all power within, and so I can face anything, no matter how difficult it seems. And all of you here today have done that so many times in your lives. How many times you thought, no, I can't face this. No, I'm not going to make this. No, this I can't do. No, this is too much. And yet you're still here. Yet you're still here. So with that, I will close for my first session. Thank you.